this episode, you join myself and Nash Tackle's very own continental carp fishing superstar, Henry Lennon. You may have heard he's caught a big one from Spain. We're at Nash Lakes Royston and we're going to target the carp using zigs. Zigs can often be underused and overlooked, but devastating in the right hands. We're going to give you loads of tips and information for you to catch your own zig caught carp. And as ever, there's loads of information through the course of this episode. First job, I've got to go find him. Here he is, sports fans, Mr. Lennon.
You right, mate? How you doing?
Good, mate. How are you?
Yeah, not too bad.
It's my first venture onto Nash Lakes Royston, mate, I'm ashamed to say. It looks very nice.
It's really cool, isn't it? It's really, really cool. I've not been here for a while, but I used to fish here quite a lot in the past. It's basically where I learnt to properly zig fish. It's a great zig water. I think that's what we're going to go for today, isn't it?
Why is this such a good zigs water, do you think, mate?
The depth, definitely the depth. It's like, there's just so much of the time, especially this time of year where they're 20 foot away from the bottom of the water. So that's why zigs are so successful. Also, people don't fish them a lot, as is always the case on a lot of waters.
Well, we're going to go around, try and find a few, and then we're probably going to do a little bit of a contrasting style of zig fishing. I'm going to use the old adjustables and the run clips, and you're going to use fixed zigs, is that right?
Yeah, when I used to fish here, like I said 2 or 3 years ago, I used to always fish fixed because there are a few snags in here, so I wanted to drop that lead quite quickly to get the rod up and away from the snags. But obviously we've got the run clip now, so you can drop the lead. So I'm still going to stick with fixed. You're going to go for adjustables. We'll swap over if one's performing better than the other.
Perfect.
Sheep the other person up, and
I like this, mate.
And haul basically.
Let's go catch a few. Let's get round there because it looks like the end of that wind looks like a good bet, doesn't it?
I think so. Yeah.
Let's go, mate.
We're fishing, rods are out. The swim I chose to fish in the end was main snags. I used to fish here quite a lot when I did fish at Royston a bit more regularly, and the reason is when you're fishing the zigs, it gives you a lot of open water. Approach-wise, me and Hassan talked about it, we are zig fishing, and he's on the adjustables, I'm on the fixed. Of course, there's so many more benefits at times to fishing adjustables, so if Hassan is catching, the fish don't seem to be wary of that float, I will jump over and completely sheep him up and go down that route as well. But for now, I'm on the fixed. I'm fishing quite long zigs. Some people may say that they're too long really to fish effectively with, but for me, if you've got the right hardware, you can fish the lengths I'm fishing. I'm fishing 21, 18 and 15 foot at the moment, those different depths to try and find where they are. You do need to fish with a long rod when you're using these, just because landing them on a short 10 foot, 9 foot dwarf that I normally fish with is just impossible. So I've gone for 12 footers. The extra couple of foot means that I can play those fish and land them on those long hook links. You also need to make sure that they're not going to tangle. That is a big part of it. To help with that, I use a little short bit of rig tubing before the lead, and then I'll use an XL tungsten kicker. That makes that stiff section there, and providing that you cast, feel the lead properly, feather it down, everything will kick away nicely and you won't have any tangles, even with those really, really long hook links. Then using zig screws, I love the zig screws, they're so easy to use. You can change the hook bait with these, you can change the colour with these that you're fishing with, which can be quite important at times. So I do like the zig screws, and they kick perfectly and leave a nice gape with the hook that you're using. So if we're struggling for bites, I will think about adding a few maggots as well, because the extra attraction, those big ball of maggots wiggling away mid-water, carp can't resist. So yeah, that's the approach. 3 rods out, those different depths. Once you've got that first bite, you know what depth they're at, all the rods move over, and you increase your chances so much of getting bites. Just waiting for that moment. But yeah, it's looking good, feeling very hopeful.
Undeniably devastating method when zig fishing is sloppy spodding over the top of zigs. Now this is ultra effective on high stock venues, but it's equally effective on venues where there are less carp. Where traditionally you're fishing with a zig that is just the visual appeal of a piece of foam out there, with sloppy spodding over the top, the mix itself carries loads of attraction and hones the fish in to the exact area where your fish are. They're moving in on the food signal, they're looking for food, and they can often become ultra competitive and easier to catch on those zigs that you're presented below the sloppy spod cloud. The integral part of sloppy spodding is the mix itself. For 90% of the mix, I simply use our spod cloud place it into a bucket and add water. Now, an important aspect of using the spod cloud is that you get the correct consistency. You want like a heavy liquid porridge type consistency. You don't want it too liquefied that it's going to fly out the back of your dot spod, or that it will be ineffective when you get it out in the swim, and you don't want it too thick that it's almost powdery and disperses on the surface. It's a simple case of adding lake water a little at a time, getting that consistency to the right level. What that will do is when applied via a dot spod, there'll be a long hanging cloud full of fine particles and attraction that the fish, over a period of time, as you gradually introduce more and more, will come up to meet and investigate. When they're investigating, there'll obviously be your zigs stationed at that level, and it is a case again of when you get takes at a certain level within that cloud, feeding to keep the fish at that level, or adjusting your zigs accordingly until you get bites. With any type of feeding, the key is regularity. Keep that dot spod going in on the same spot and keep that cloud present. That will keep the fish competing and coming up in the water column. Now, in addition to just the standard spod cloud, in my mix, I like a bit more of a multi-dimensional feature. What I mean by that is I want to be able to use the same area that I'm baiting to maybe target the fish if they're not coming up on the bottom, as well as also if they come really high in the water on the surface, target them there. And all I do to do that and create a multi-dimensional mix is add a couple more components to the actual spod cloud itself. Firstly, to eliminate the surface layer, I'll add some riser pellet. Only a few, maybe a handful or two, to a bucket mix. And what that will do is it will leave me some particles on top of the surface, above the cloud, and it will also flatten off the surface. And I can see a fish are coming right up in the water column and taking off the top. What I then can do is fish over depth zigs, or maybe even wind the zigs in totally and fish on the surface with a bolt machine controller. Conversely to that, within the mix itself, I'll also add a couple of handfuls of the 2mm and 6mm Scopex squid pellet. What that will do is it will fall through the layers. If the fish aren't coming up in the water column, as they fluctuate in terms of the level they sit at during the course of the day, or as we draw into the evening, you might see some fizzing or indications that the fish are following those pellets down onto the deck. And I can present hook baits on the deck throughout the evening and hopefully pick up some bonus bites there rather than just having the zigs out. Finally, this actual spod cloud is a great carrier of any form of liquid. So your imagination is limitless with this. I like to use a Scopex squid spod syrup, but you can use any of our spod syrups. What that will do is it will again increase the food signal and traction being pumped out through the water column, as well as providing some oil content higher up, again, if those fish are higher up in the cloud itself. It's ultra effective. It's really, really useful, as I've said before, on those high stock venues. And if you haven't tried it, get out there with some spod cloud, all those elements, put the mix together and go and catch your own. Now, the rods have been out for a couple of hours, and as you can probably tell, conditions have changed massively. The sun's gone in, we've got cloud cover come in, and the wind has increased in speed. Now, the reason, and I said this at the start of the program, I've opted to fish the Zig run clip kit is the versatility that that gives you. Unlike Henry, where he's got to reel in, he's got to adjust the length of his zig to then cast out again. With this clip, I can fish the whole water column on the same cast. So I'm not casting in again, creating additional disturbance. I've cast to basically where I've seen fish show, and then all I'm doing is working the depths to hopefully find out where those fish are. Now, the actual kit itself is ultra simple to use, and the kit comes with the zig float, which is ultra buoyant, and the run clips. Now, the beauty of this, unlike any other zig sort of float, is that you can drop the lead with this system, and obviously the versatility that I talked about before. So essentially all you do is add the clip onto your main line, add the zig float, then there's a little swivel that fits into it, and you need to make sure that's fully in there so it's not running. And then what I do is I've got a hook length, 10-pound zig flow, a size 8 floater claw, our yellow zig screw, and black foam. Now, the reason I'm using foam hook baits and black and yellow specifically is because Alfie, Henry, a fair few lads in the office have been and fished Royston on the zigs, and black and yellow has been a winning combination. So I've started on them on 2 rods, and then I've got a black and red, which is one of my favourite combinations, on another rod. And all I'm going to do is adjust the depth at which they're fishing. I've got one at 3 foot, one at 4 foot, one at 5 foot, and every hour, hour and a half or so, I'll work those columns. I'll keep a log of it on my phone. I'll make sure that I'm using the benefit of that zig float, coming down in the water and then maybe back up depending on what I see, how light levels change and all those sort of things. It's very versatile, it's really simple to use. It might look a bit cumbersome, but it really isn't. Those floats are ultra buoyant. There's no need to put any foam or anything on for tangles. They're really reliable, and that is why I've chosen and opted to fish with them on all 3 of those rods. Well, it's happened. We've waited. I just recast the zig. It was a bit right, and we'd seen some shows around a tree on the far bank. I cast in line with that. It's probably been out 5 minutes. It's pulled tight, and we're in. Interestingly, that was 3 foot down as well. So they're quite high in the water, and they just started showing with sort of regularity. I managed to capitalise on that. And hopefully with a bit of luck, the lead's dropped obviously, so we can keep him up in the water and coax him into the waiting net. Well, there he is, we're off the mark. Proof in the pudding that those adjustable zigs work. A quick redeployment into an area where they started showing. The sun's come out, 3 foot under the surface. We've got our first one. Those zigs have certainly paid dividends, and they're back out there, hopefully, the start of things to come. I'm chuffed to bits. Now, you've heard me talk about the benefits of the adjustable zig and run clip system throughout the course of this session. No doubt it's given me an edge with regards to fishing out there in that depth of water. What I'm going to talk you through now is how to set it up. There are a few components, you need to get it all in the right order, but once you've done it a few times, it's ultra simple to set up and effective, as I've hopefully displayed here. I'm going to break it down into 2 parts. You've got the zig float and the run clip part, which is one, and then you've got your sort of traditional end zig rig. First, in order to get started, you need to take the run clip and you need to thread that onto your main line. You need to thread the pointy tail rubber end on first. Once that clips on, you then thread on the buffer bead. Now, the important thing about this buffer bead is that you've got it so that you thread through the real thin end first, because that buffer bead's just going to slip over the bottom of your zig float. Next, you thread on your zig float onto your main line. Now, that is threaded from the stem end first. Your main line passes through the zig float, and then, for me, I attach it to a size 8 uni swivel. That is the clip and zig float element of the rig. That's going to give you that versatility, that movement to be able to control your depth when it's out in the pond. After that, it's a case of tying a traditional zig rig. I use an XL clear anti-tangle sleeve just to neaten things up. So when it's onto that uni swivel, I pull that anti-tangle sleeve down to give separation, and it also gives a real clear indicator when you pop that float up out in the pond for you to see. In terms of the hook length, I tend to use a zig rig that is from the butt eye to the reel seat in length. What that means is I've got a real good gauge on my rod as to what depth I can start from as a reference point to get that zig working. Once that's all tied up, you've got your zig foam hook bait, your floater claw hook and your zig screw. It's a case of casting it out into the pond. When you cast out, ensure that you feel it down as you would do traditionally on a bottom bait type setup. Once the lead's touched down, keep the tension between the zig float, the lead and your rod. And then it's a simple case of, under a little bit of tension with your fingers, opening the bail arm and letting that zig float rise up. You'll find that the zig floats are ultra buoyant. they pull the line off your spool. You'll see your zig float and that XL anti-tangle sleeve proud of the water, depending on how far out you're fishing. You might need some binoculars to see that. Once that's on the surface, it's a case of putting your rod on the rod rest and then pinching the line from the butt eye and feeding it back onto the spool. That way, your rig will be just under the surface. From that point, you can then wind on as much line as possible, pinching the line at all times, and work those depths. Not only can you work that float down in the depths, you can also pop it back up if the sun comes out and the fish start showing, for example. Or, as I said before, if you think they've dropped down in the layers, you can just pinch a foot at a time, bring that line in. The most important thing is that you know what depth those zigs are. Because you can vary them so much, so easily, I use my phone, I chart down what depth each rod is at. That way, if I start getting takes at 7 foot, I can lower them all to 7 foot really easy, really quickly, and hopefully monopolise on a few bites. That's the system. It's easy to set up. Once you've done it a few times, it's absolutely rapid, and it's guaranteed to get you working those water columns effectively and catch you a few fish on zigs.
I hear your Royston virginity's been broken.
Oh, what a fitting line. Yeah, mate, it has. I've had one, and to
Was
be
it a nice one?
nice, yes, it was a nice carp. I'm glad to get off the mark, mate. The first bite out of anywhere is good, and on the old adjustable zigs. To be fair, in the last, we're coming into the evening, but the last couple of hours have started showing a bit more readily, haven't they?
Yeah. How far under were you?
So 3 foot down from the surface, and a red and black hook bait. I've got 2 yellow and blacks, and that was the only red and black. And to be fair, could have been coincidence, but I pretty much saw 2 fish bosh out on line with a tree and just put it straight out there. And within, I don't know, 5 minutes, I was standing by the rod and it's gone.
That quick?
That's what zigs are like, isn't it? You know that.
They can be so quickly. Okay, interesting. I've made mine a little bit longer, so I'm fishing the similar sort of depth than you. They sort of showed a bit more to the left as well, so I've moved around with them. And a hook bait wise. I don't have any red on, but I've started putting maggots on mine as well. I think that could be a secret little edge.
He's kept that one quiet.
So good in the water when you test on the edge, just this big ball of maggots wiggling away. So
have you put them on?
Floss, bait floss.
Have you? What it seems like is when they've been showing, and that was a classic example for that bite, is they were showing in like a concentrated area, they've moved left onto nearer where you are. So I think going into the end of this evening, and maybe even through the night, it looks good for you, mate, if they carry on showing down there, I think.
And I know that at night they love coming in front of these swims here.
Okay.
So it's like a highway for them at night. And honestly, you're going to be a full night with showing. They go crazy at night. You're not going to be able to sleep.
What are you going to do evening-wise? You're going to stay the same depth, 3 foot under? You're going to go lower? What are you going to do?
I don't know. I really don't know. I've not decided yet. I'm going to see how cold it gets.
Right.
I might drop one a little bit, but unless it gets really, really cold, I'm probably going to keep them pretty similar. Okay. I find that it's better really to be ready for first light. You find as soon as that sun rises over those banks over there and hits the water, you start getting bites again. Okay. If you're on them. So I might drop one a little bit, but I'll probably keep a couple in the kill zone.
I think I'm going to stay 3 foot under the surface with all 3 at the moment. What I am going to do is, as we draw into dark, depending on what the shows are like, I might keep them at 3 foot. However, if they're getting sort of less active, I might drop them down. I'm just going to judge it by pretty much what I've seen. The bite came because they were active, and I've put one out there under the surface. If I don't get a lot of activity, I'll drop them down. But that's the beauty of an adjustable. You can tinker it pretty quick. But I think, mate, looking at it, the weather was pretty savage earlier. It wasn't very ziggy, and then the sun's come out, they're showing, and it bodes pretty well, mate, I think.
I think next 2 or 3 hours we've got a chance for a couple more.
Yeah, mate. I'm going to get the kettle on, mate. We'll have a brew, and hopefully one of these rods shows off. Look in my bed early after a lovely pizza with the lads, and the middle rod has absolutely melted off. Again, 3 foot zigs out towards that zone where they were showing before. Taken a bit longer since that last bite, and they haven't really been showing, but we're into another one. Mate, that absolutely ramped off, that did. Yeah, mate, absolutely flew. I was fucking...
Is that a cat?
Oh, don't do me that. That can't be a cat, can it?
I just thought I saw the tail coming.
No, that's not a cat. That's snooky, mate.
It's not a bino catfish.
It's taking up both my other rods. There she is.
A lovely cat.
Yes! Not the intended species, mate, but it's a bite, isn't it? Well, there he is. Not the intended species, but another zig caught victim. I hope there's not more of these in the night. I'm going to get him back. I don't know what he is, 15, 20 pound? If you like him, he's lovely. To me, he's a bit slimy and a bit tadpole-like, but he was nailed on that zig, 3 foot under the surface. He gave a very good account of himself. I'm going to slip him back and get to bed. Summer is upon us, the weather's beautiful. Few of us are venturing abroad. It's a perfect opportunity for a social. And when you say the word social, the first thing that springs to mind is our bank life range. Come with me. I'm going to show you the central unit for bank life, which has to be centered around the Gazebo Camo Pro. Now, the Gazebo Camo Pro itself has a number of key features that really make it unique and perfect for whatever type of swim or situation you're going to find yourself in on your social. First of all, it's got a really nice open plan space, which you can use as a kitchen or a lounge area. It's got this rigid awning, which means that if the rain and the wind comes in quickly, as we know it does sometimes if you're fishing in France, for example, you can duck under there, get some shelter, and also that awning extends the front of the gazebo nicely for extra space. On top of that, you've got a sealed Velcro ground sheet and also an inner mozzie mesh capsule to stop any little bitey flies or mozzies getting in, as we know they're pretty prevalent come the summer months. You can see here that the Gazebo Camo Pro itself is set up with 2 additional sleeping pods. Now, they come as extra and are bought separately, and the unit itself can actually have 3. So whatever shape of swim you're in, you can mould and configure it so that it fits perfectly and you're not going to be stuck for space or cramped in any way. Now, as well as the main Gazebo Pro and the sleeping pods that I've talked about, the bank life range encompasses a lot more. And these items ensure that whatever you're doing on your social, whether that be cooking, whether that be sleeping, sitting, lounging, or just generally chatting, that you're amply taken care of. Starting with the cookware station, obviously perfect if somebody's cooking and you've got a designated chef. You've got a range of different chairs in the bank life range, and also a range of different accessories, organisers that ensure that everything has its place, nothing's going to get lost, and you're optimised for the time that you're going to spend on the bank, whatever you may be doing within your social. If you're looking to get out, spend an extended period of time on the bank, head on holiday, you want a central area for everyone to focus, you want it to be clean, organised, and to provide comfort, look no further than the Nash Bank Life range. Well, that was a very quiet night, and I've woke up this morning. Conditions are different. It's overcast, it's windy, and I haven't seen any show. So what I'm going to do, another beauty of these adjustables, is instead of having them at 3 foot where I had the bites, including that catfish, I'm going to crank them down to 10 foot, because I think with these conditions, those fish have dropped down in the layers. So I'm going to adjust these quickly. Just a simple case of clipping the bobbin off and then grabbing a foot of line, reeling it onto the reel. Do that 7 times, 7 extra foot on the 3 foot of depth I already had. And that'll be down, fishing at 10 foot. And let's hope that we're going to work the depths and find a key depth again. Yesterday it was 3 foot with conditions very different. Today it just looks like they're going to be deeper at the moment, unless this sun bobs out later. Go on the boy, what's this cheeky 4th rod?
They've been crashing down there, so I just put a little zig, like 3 foot zig down the edge, and it's gone straight away. There we go.
He's in.
He's in.
He's a nice one, mate. Well
Okay,
done.
in there. Hey.
Well done, boy.
I think somehow I've taken out my furthest left-hand rod there.
We have
So
got to
we're all
say
over the
though,
place.
we have got to say you're allowed 4 rods here, aren't you?
Yes, you are allowed 4
I know
rods.
you like to swerve a rule,
But this is actually, I'm following the rules here, I promise you.
legitimate. How deep was that?
3 foot. It's really shallow here, and they've just been coming in along this margin here. So I just flick one down there and it's busted off.
I might be putting one left for you.
Yeah, there you go. Nice.
Well done, mate. That's a
Cheers,
nice
man.
one.
Oh, finally nice to get one. It's taken a little bit longer than I'd hoped and had to require a little bit of opportunist angling. Saw a few fish crashing to my right, so I tied on a tiny zig, about 3 foot long, flicked it down the edge, and yeah, ripped off with this old character, I'll say, on the end. Still trying to figure out where they are in the middle, but I'm sure between me and Hassan, we'll crack it soon and hopefully get a few more fish in the back of our nets.
There he is.
Margin zig again.
The old snot. Maybe I need to drop them short, mate. if you're catching the
Maybe,
edge.
maybe. It is this one spot where they're coming in and out. I can see them. Oh, there's one.
There's one showing quite long just there. So maybe it's just those spells of activity.
Yeah, might be.
He's a nice one, mate.
We do.
A Royston banger bar.
Get in there.
Go on the zigs. Well done, mate.
Fish number 2, same tactic, same spot. Sadly, not a big one. I mean, there's so many big carp in Royston, so I think for the 3 that me and Hassan have had to not have a big one yet, we're not doing very well on that side of things, but really cool little stocky. Hopefully a sign of things to come. The weather is not very ziggy at all, but with the depths at Royston, I still think they're going to be somewhere in those mid layers. They're not going to be at the surface, so I think they're going to be in mid water, which is still sort of 12, 13 foot. So I brought my zigs down to that depth. I think if this weather stays like this, it actually could do us a favour because we just need consistent weather. The fish stay at one depth. I hope we've got a chance of catching them. So yeah, slipping back, hopefully get a couple more.
I've come pretty much directly opposite of where we're fishing. We'd seen loads of shows real close in on this peg and I simply couldn't sit in that swim off them. I've flicked out 2 adjustables, one in the edge because they were showing in close, this one also in the edge, and it's literally gone in my hands. Just shows you location as well as the right method is paramount. It's just holding deep. I've got such light zig flow on, I can't flipping horse him. I ran out of £10, Tony was messing around with it. I put £8, tied up some fresh zigs, put £8 zig flow on, and then come around there and up on a short range next to some snags. It's either just snag or just carp. Snag, innit? Well, I think, unfortunately, with that lost fish, the conditions being as they are, time ebbing away, the chance has been and gone for me. It's the thing, you do lose a few occasionally, it's a bitter one. The only thing I'm going to do, wind these rods in, get my stuff, go and see Henry.
No good.
Mr. Lennon, I've lost one. Hug me.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, mate.
Mate.
Didn't get another chance?
No, mate, they just dissolved. All shows went, this rain's coming like ridiculous. It's just not looking ziggy. And we're losing the light. It looks like the time to wrap up, mate. Anything happen around here? No, the boy.
Yeah,
you haven't had one.
Yeah.
I've stole the cameraman, mate, and got him round with me. You've had one.
Mid-water, about 12 foot. I saw one show, put it out. Same like you said, about 10 minutes later, had a bite.
Oh, mate, you are, that, honestly, mate, that is a result.
Because expecting it.
It's not ziggy at the moment with that rain. It looks bleak. Fair play, mate. Should we get him out and have a look?
Yeah, let's do it.
Mate.
There we go.
You, my friend, are a hero. Whatever they say about the office is completely wrong.
What are they saying?
No, honestly, mate, the conditions to get a bite on a zig, incredible. Hands down, I did not think that was going to happen, and I'm glad it has. You saved the day, mate. There's a reason you were on the shoot,
Cheers,
boy.
Mate. Thanks very much. Yeah, it hasn't been the easiest session to demonstrate zig fishing, but we still managed a few, and it just goes to show that when the conditions really are bang on here, you can probably have quite, well, I know you can have quite a few, so. Yeah,
Mate, that's a
I'll
great
take that, though.
Yeah, mate, that's a great way to round off. I hope you've enjoyed the tips. You can put them into practice and catch your own zig caught carp. Until then, from Royston and this beautiful man, see you later.
In a bit, guys.